So please silence your. Hello, everyone. Today we are on our fourth lesson about keeping kosher and the different laws of kashrut. Last time we talked about preparing kosher meat, and we are reading from the article with expanded explanations. So we are on page 312, and we got to kosher slaughter. You remember we talked about last time about the blood. The blood has to be completely drained out of the animal, and you're not allowed to eat blood. We saw that as a biblical commandment. And we also talked about the difference between a biblical commandment and a rabbinic commandment. Sorry. Okay. And this is sort of like, right? We said there are rabbinic laws and biblical laws, and we distinguished between them. And we said that the biblical laws could not be changed or adapted in any way. And the rabbinic laws have more flexibility in that sense, that sometimes they could be even overturned in certain situations. And this is important for what we're going to do today. I want to talk about kosher slaughtering. Okay, this is a big deal because you can eat a kosher animal like a cow, but if it's not slaughtered in the right way, you cannot eat it. It has to be slaughtered. So there is non-kosher animals like a pig. Okay, hi Sandra. Okay, and so even if you kill a pig, if you slaughter a pig in a kosher way, won't make it kosher. Well, it doesn't matter. Okay, so you try very hard, but it won't be kosher.
No such thing as kosher bacon.
No, no. Right. There's kosher bacon bits that my dad loves eating. Yeah, yeah. But they're vegetarian. They're not meat. They taste like, yeah. I don't know. He doesn't. He doesn't. Yeah. I had people compare and they said it's not the same. It's not the same. Okay, I'll never know. So right, but an animal that is kosher, if it's not slaughtered in the kosher way, will not be kosher. So that is crucial to what is kosher meat. And not so many times, like I could tell you, people said this is kosher meat, and they don't have a clue that it's not kosher because it's obvious that it wasn't slaughtered in the proper way. So what is kosher slaughtering? Let's go into page 312. In order to ensure that as much blood as possible is drained from the animal, everyone sees page 312? Okay. A very specific manner of slaughter known as shchita, shechting, okay, in Yiddish, was instituted. Shchita, that's in Hebrew, or in Yiddish you say like shechting. The method was established to promote both the greatest possible loss of blood while reducing the level of pain the animal experienced to an absolute minimum. Mammals and fowl must be slaughtered according to the laws of kosher shchita, but not fish. Fish is something else. You just kill a fish with a smack on the head or something, okay? What? Yeah, something like that. But the living animals, like the chicken and the cows and the goats and everything, they have to be slaughtered in that way to maximize. Yeah.
Blood, don't they?
No, but it's not blood. It's you're allowed to eat their blood. It's not the same. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
You ever seen a chicken slaughter?
No, I saw. Yeah, I did. Yeah,
Yeah, I almost saw a chicken's head cut off.
yeah,
Just ran
yeah.
Oh,
It's not
Run
that.
around like a chicken with his
around.
head cut.
That's
That's it.
right.
Yeah.
There's no way to do it.
Right.
Chop the heads. You gotta slice it underneath to get out the guts.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. But to maximize the flow of blood in shchita, the animal's neck must be slit with a very sharp knife. Okay. In the case of mammals, both the trachea and esophagus must be cut. For birds, at least one of the two must be cut. This method of slaughter causes very little pain, as the animal quickly loses consciousness from the swift loss of blood. Death then occurs after a few minutes, sometimes even sooner. Okay, so these are two parts that have to be. Now close your eyes and don't look at the next if you're sensitive. Okay, yeah. And so, by the way, this is halal. This is I couldn't find a picture from a kosher website. Okay, but here is the trachea. Okay, maybe the doctors here could help us. Okay, what? Trachea. Oh, okay, trachea. Oh, thank you very much. I'm going to talk about this, all these programs that we want you to join in a minute. And the esophagus is the blue one here, okay? And the cut, at least I think the Jewish one as well requires that you have to cut through both of them at the same time. So the neck has to be presented in a way that it's easy to do it in that way. Actually, I think we turn on the heat now. Now it's too hot, right? It's like the heat is on.
I don't know if it's heat. It is a range. It's just.
Yeah, I don't mean, you could probably turn it off now. Okay, so this is that part. Okay, let's get that picture out of our way. So going back to our article, the professional slaughterer called a shochet, a shoichet, or a shochetet, which is a female, plural of shochatim, is required to be a religious and caring individual. It's a criteria. Indeed, one of the fundamentals of the whole system of kashrut, of keeping kosher, is the unyielding requirement that the people who have accepted the responsibility of taking the lives of animals themselves be acutely aware of the preciousness and the sanctity of God's gift of life. Okay, so this is something very important, that the people who are doing it care also about, humans, animals, and that they're pleasant people. You don't take someone with a bad temper to be a shofet.
Yeah.
Have to be Jewish, but they have to be checked that their temper is a good one.
Rabbi, does the Orthodox recognize women as
No, they don't. So but it is permissible for women to do shchita. Although eating meat outside the sacrificial context is formally allowed by the Torah at Deuteronomy 12:15, which apparently intended to clear up the ambiguity of Leviticus 17, there is little question that the Torah posits the ideal menu to be the vegetarian one offered to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. Therefore, the slaughterer's role is, by definition, an ethically difficult one, because the act of taking an animal's life so that people can eat meat is at best a compromise. With that in mind, the halacha mandates that the slaughterer of God's creatures must be scrupulous in terms of devotion to even the slightest detail of the law. To take life, even animal life, requires that the slaughterer be wholly attuned to the serious nature of the activity and never callous or uncaring. So these are very important parts. I said that also last time. The Bible really starts off with people being vegetarian without eating the animals, but knowing humans' nature and understanding that, the Torah understands that it cannot prohibit people from doing that. So if you do that, you have to do it in a proper way and in the most, compassionate way possible.
Would chopping a chicken's head off be considered proper? There's a lot of people probably do that. Or wring its neck, I guess.
Yeah, I think wringing a neck. Yeah, there are different way. In the altar, they would wring the neck, but for koshering it, for eating it, you have to do it in this way,
Well,
in the way that's presented here.
is it also supposed to be done quickly?
Yeah, it has to be done swiftly. Here, we're going to get to that in a second. In light of the serious religious nature of this task, it is required that a blessing be recited before the animal is killed. So there's even a blessing that you say. The blessing itself is Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shekidshanu tzvotav v'tzivanu al hashchita. Praise are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who sanctifying us with divine commandments, has commanded us regarding slaughter. So praising God, the source of life at the moment of taking a life, forces the slaughterer to work in a state of constant awareness that the serious task at hand, for all that is sacred work, is also a concession to human weakness and to the voraciousness of human appetite. Okay, so we need to understand that we're vulnerable as human beings as we eat the meat, and I don't know if we should have guilt feelings, but we should be at least aware of the price that animal paid for us. The slaughterer's tools, and this is the important part, include a set of knives that must be sharpened to the highest possible level. Even so, the knife must be inspected anew for the slightest nick just before each use, lest such an imperfection in the blade cause a tear in the animal's flesh when its neck is slit, and that makes it not kosher if there's a tear like that. After the animal has been slaughtered, the knife must be inspected again to ensure that nothing interfered with the actual cutting. And that also makes it not kosher. If the knife is imperfected, if there's like a blemish in the knife, the animal is not kosher. All this is intended to spare the animal the realization that its life is ending until it loses consciousness just prior to actually dying. Okay? Now we go into a different topic, which is more contemporary, which is very interesting. Some countries have banned shchita, okay, kosher slaughtering, ostensibly out of concern for the well-being of animals. Whatever the real motivation behind such legislation, and here he's actually implying that some of it might not be because they favor Jews, okay? However, the halacha itself has the means to deal with issues of animal cruelty as they arise. For example, large industrial abattoirs need need a system to keep animals still and in place while the shochatim, the slaughterers, work. There are two methods in use to accomplish this. The more modern method to holding the animal is to have the animal restrained comfortably in a special pen with a device holding the animal's head in place while exposing the neck to the slaughterer's blade. Okay, this is the more regular way and the better way. The older method requires that the animal be shackled by a back leg, then hoisted up so that it is suspended upside down and only then conveyed by a machine to the shoichet. While this method does not seem technically to contravene the laws that govern shchita, it is widely understood today that this method of restraining animals is the abattoir, is actually quite cruel. In 2000, therefore, the Committee on Jewish Law and Standards, that's the conservative movement, forbade this practice as inconsistent with the highest values of halachically mandated kindness to animals, even at the very end of their lives. Now that kosher humane slaughter using upright pens is both possible and widespread, the CJLS, the Committee on Jewish Law and Standards paper declared, we find shackling and hoisting to be a violation of Jewish laws forbidding cruelty to animals. Okay, this is from 2000. The issue of shackling and hoisting is discussed from the vantage point of the laws prohibiting cruelty to animals laid in this volume by Rabbi Edward Friedman. So this is a very interesting thing, and it's a big dispute between the conservative movement and the Orthodox movement. And after doing some research online about this, I got to this very interesting information. Apparently, a shackle and hoist slaughter method. Okay, this is what they do to the animal. I don't want to show you bigger, but there in 2018 there was an historic victory, and U.S. Kosher Authority, Orthodox, bans shackle and hoist slaughter as well. And the article here says, following a joint PETA investigation, you know what PETA is? Yes. Like for animal human rights, in which, why? Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know they throw blood on you, right? You know. Yeah.
They have another agenda.
Extreme.
I know, but however, apparently they're trying to take credit for this, but their activists expose one of the cruelest industrial cattle slaughter methods on earth, and the Orthodox Union, the largest kosher certifying agency in the U.S., the OU, told its meat suppliers that it will no longer accept flesh from animals killed by the shackle and hoist slaughter method. So this is very interesting. Something that conservative movement sort of like came out against 20 years before, and then slowly adopted even by the Orthodox movement. That's unheard of. It's although we do see it happened also with women issues, like the conservative movement allowing women to be ordained as rabbis or to have an aliyah. Okay, and then now there are Orthodox groups that also allow that, which is interesting. So there is an influence going in that regard.
Did I understand that when the conservative movement came out, counting women, one thing at the time, I understood that there was never a prohibition for women reading from the Torah.
Right.
Even though the Orthodox
The Talmud says that a woman could do that. Yeah, they just did it for more traditional reasons and other halachic reasons. Yeah, okay, but we're talking about slaughtering and not women today, nor slaughtering women. Okay, yeah.
I understand the whole ethical nature of the slaughtering and so on, but at the same time, nature, animals kill each other
Right.
completely arbitrarily for any number of reasons, and so in some ways I say it's counterintuitive.
Yeah, and then you could say, what does it matter at the end of the day? The animal's dead, right? But I think it is important for us as human beings who care so much for human being lives and are careful with that to also be careful with other lives in that sense, especially with animals that have blood and seem to have some. So it looks like the Jewish tradition is very considerate of that, and I think it's more reassuring when you're eating that meat that it's been slaughtered in that more proper way.
Do animals have a soul in the Jewish tradition?
Yeah, depends. Depends on which authorities you would ask. There's some that say they do. Not all of them. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So now we're at the bottom of page 313. Slaughtering animals for kosher consumption is a very precise, extremely technical procedure requiring expertise in many areas. As such, the slaughterer of animals for consumption may be done only by trained shochatim. They have to be really trained. And special kashrut issues relating to the way veal calves are raised for slaughter are discussed in a detailed response by Rabbi Pamela Barmish, approved by the CJLS in 2007, and available to interested readers on the website of the Rabbinical Assembly. Okay, now we move to the next thing, which is inspection. Yeah,
I just want to add a little humor. My
Yeah.
sons were circumcised by Rabbi Shepard.
oh, okay.
Fourth generation Shepard
Oh, wow.
from Chabad back in Poland.
Okay, I hope they brought a smaller knife than the shochet.
Well, he had a lot of experience because his family was
Yeah.
all shochatim.
Oh my
So
God.
when I met him, I was like,
Oh, yeah.
wow.
Show me your knife, yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, but they know what they're doing on the brith and the shochatim. They do it so exact and
Oh,
precise.
so fast.
Did they start the
Yeah.
blood?
Did they
Yeah.
have sex?
Did they start the blood?
No,
I wasn't around.
yeah, right.
The boys in the British monarchy are being circumcised by
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
All of
interesting.
a lot of the royalty.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, the next thing on page 314 is inspection. Now that the animal's kosher, you would think, okay, let's go and eat it. Okay, I mean, cook it and eat it, right? No, it's not over yet. It's still another very important part is the inspection. Animals, other than fish that are not slaughtered according to the laws of Shechita, may not be eaten, whether the animal died on its own due to illness, was hunted, was slaughtered in a non-kosher facility, or died in some other manner. However, even if an animal is killed appropriately by a qualified slaughterer, shoichet, it is still possible for its meat to be considered non-kosher if it is posthumously determined that the animal was ill or maimed internally in a significant way. Therefore, after an animal has been killed, its carcass must be carefully inspected for any number of internal defects, as well as for evidence of disease. The term treifa, which when we say treif, often used as a synonym for non-kosher, actually refers to animals that have the kind of physical defects that make their flesh unkosher regardless of the care with which they were slaughtered. So they could have been slaughtered properly, but they have these maims in them that will make them unkosher. There are a number of different parts of mammals which must be inspected, but the focus of the inspection today is mostly on the lungs. There are some lung imperfections, such as certain kinds of adhesions or presence of scar tissues that are permitted in kosher meat. If, however, the inspected lung is found to be smooth to the touch, the animal's flesh is often described not simply as being kosher, but as being glatt kosher. The word glatt is the Yiddish word for smooth. In non-Yiddish speaking venues and in Israel, the Hebrew word is halak, which is the same meaning is sometimes used. The designation glatt kosher is properly applied only to meat from mammals and refers specifically to this quality of having unscarred lungs free of all abrasions. In the vernacular, however, glatt kosher has come to indicate a level of kashrut supervision above the basic requirements. Consumption of any kosher meat is acceptable, however, and there's no requirement to eat only glatt kosher except as an act of extreme piety. Businesses that prey on the naive by suggesting that people who are serious about kashrut would only eat glatt kosher meat therefore are behaving unscrupulously. So this is very important as well. First of all, when we say glat, okay, and people sometimes, I see like in pizza, it's like glat kosher pizza. It's nonsense. There's no glat kosher pizza. Glat is only for meat. Okay, so number one, beware. Okay, people say, I saw like on a lettuce thing, it's like glat. It was like inspected by the best rabbis, etc. So it's glat. It's not glat. It's inspected by the rabbis. Okay, but it became like a name. People adopted that name. Glat is only for the lungs of the animal that are examined and that it's like smooth, because there can't be a rupture. If there's a hole in the lung, it's treif. It's not kosher. However, if it's like a hole, but it got healed in a natural way, because the animal there might have been a hole, maybe it got a bump or something, and it healed because it heals over time. Okay, so that will make it kosher. It won't be glat kosher because it's not smooth. So some rabbis decided, that we will now even checking it is not a mandatory thing commanded by the Torah. It is a rabbinic law. It's not a biblical law. And the reason that the Bible doesn't say it is because of something we studied last week. Most kosher animals are presumed to be kosher and not to be defected. Why would you think, that an animal would have these defects? If it's alive and healthy and everything, it should be fine. So because most animals are considered kosher, you go according to the majority. Remember we talked about last week that if you have two pieces of kosher meat and one piece of non-kosher meat and they look the same and they mix up and you don't know which is which, you can eat them. Why? Because the biblical law is that the majority overrules the minority. So the same with this. So glat, not only you don't have to check the animal, so the whole thing of glat is even more absurd in that sense. Okay, so today we go according to rabbinic law, so you definitely have to check the the animals, but you don't have to go as far as checking it twice. So it's just like an act of piety. Is that clear?
Didn't the rabbis have, or say something about people who go to extremes that are not required?
Yeah. Here's a good example. Okay.
Also, too,
Yeah.
is who does the inspection? Because after you slaughter it, there's a lot of work that has to be done before you can even get in there and see all the organs.
Yeah. So the slaughterhouse, they process the whole meat and then they do it there.
No, but it's not the shochet who does it.
I don't know. It doesn't have to be the shochet. It could be anyone that's trained to do that.
Young Jew also.
Yeah, it needs to be a Jew.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay. Now, at the bottom of page 314, I want to talk about another topic, which is the restricted portions. That you're not allowed to eat. Even in ancient days, not all the meat of animals offered as sacrifices in the temple could be eaten. Certain parts, for example, the fat around the kidneys, were set aside for burning. That's the chelev we talked about last week. To be consumed neither by the person bringing the sacrifice nor by the priest officiating at the sacrifice. Today, there are still restrictions on eating certain portions of the animal. The sciatic nerve, for example, that we talked about last time, as well as certain veins are forbidden fats must be removed from the meat and not consumed. The process is called nikur, treiberen in Yiddish, and must be done only by those who have been trained to do so. The Torah prohibits eating of the sciatic nerve, known in Hebrew as Gida Nashe, at Genesis 32:33. You remember that story with Jacob and the angel, but does not forbid the consumption of the meat surrounding it. Therefore, in theory, once the prohibited fats, veins, and sciatic nerve itself have all been removed, the entire slaughtered animal may be eaten. Yet the proper removal of these parts is so difficult, time-consuming, and costly that it is rarely financially worthwhile to do so. As a result, it is rare for the hindquarters of a slaughtered animal where the forbidden sinew is located to be marketed as kosher meat. Yeah, so they don't eat that. They don't sell that in kosher butchers. It is not unheard of, but merely very unusual for commercial butchers in North America to offer this service. Before purchasing such meat, however, thoughtful kosher consumers should assure themselves about both the skill of the butcher and the level of kashrut supervision in the establishment in question. Okay?
Can't eat the cow's tushy.
Yes, exactly. Okay? So there are all these back parts that you don't eat, okay? Because it is kosher, you can eat it, but taking out the fat and the sciatic nerve and all these things are such lengthy processes, and that meat, I was told, is less a quality of like the middle and the upper front parts, okay, that it's not worth it to do it. Is that true? Is it not as good?
You had a picture up here last week or the week before of a cow, and he had up the front was kosher and the back was kosher.
Yeah, that is why we had that.
Also, a lot of times they
Where's
use
that?
the behind quarters for anchor meat.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
sure not kosher anchor meat, but.
No. It could be kosher. It could be done, but they just have to do all that work on it.
In a practical sense, if we live in our belonging congregation, where can we go in the Kosher around the area to easily shop for all the things that do?
Easily is not the word, okay? But at Trader's Joe always has kosher meat.
What about everything else?
They have a lot of kosher products. We're gonna have we're probably gonna have one class in the kitchen, and then we'll go over like what does a kosher kitchen look like and how to do that. Okay.
So Trader has a big circle with a new on it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's not the only one. Yeah, we'll study that as well. Um, they also have beef. Like for Passover, they had it. Yeah, for Rosh Hashanah, they have it. Yeah. Well, that's not the healthiest, right? And Hebrew National is not accepted in the Orthodox world. Yeah. Yeah. Well, there are a lot of other hot dog manufacturers, but not Hebrew National. No, that's not kosher. No, that's not kosher. Yeah, Hebrew National is kosher. In the conservative movement, Hebrew National is fine. Okay. The next thing I wanted to talk about is soaking and salting the meat. This is another big thing that you have to do before you eat. And this is what Jews are blamed for most, is ruining a good piece of meat by salting it and soaking it. So, again, I did not have, meat that's not kosher in that sense, so I can't tell you. But I was told by some friends that it does, it makes it tougher. What?
Putting salt on a steak brings out the flavor.
No. But the question is like if you do it like before, like you really soak it with salt. Is that?
No. That's why you're barbecuing.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a little bit different. Yeah.
Well, you do don't you do that for we're supposed to do that with like chicken livers.
Yeah. All the livers, we'll talk about that here. Okay, so on page 315, soaking and salting meat. After an animal has been butchered by a kosher slaughterer according to the norms and strictures of the halacha, the meat inspected and the forbidden parts removed, the meat may still not be eaten until it undergoes a final procedure intended to remove as much blood as possible. And that's the purpose of why we're salting it. To accomplish this, the meat is rinsed in cold water, then salted with coarse cut salt, coarse cut salt, which should be called koshering salt or koshering salt, but has come to be known as kosher salt, a misleading term that suggests that there could be salt that is not kosher. So all salt is kosher, but when you see kosher salt in the supermarket, it's not because the other salt is not kosher. It's because that's the coarse salt that you use. It's a bigger one, and that's the one you're supposed to use to kosher in the animal. Okay, so a lot of people are like, why does it say kosher salt? That's not why it says it. Have you ever seen like it says kosher salt? It's not because it's kosher. All salt is kosher.
Not only bigger grains, but they haven't added iodine to it like table salt.
Yeah, but I don't think there's a problem with iodine.
No, it's been added to salt for healthy thyroid.
Oh, okay.
And you also added to water that's been sitting around for a long time.
Yeah. So all meat. I'm sorry. When meat. As noted above, this procedure is known as koshering the meat. Butchered meat that has not been koshered must be washed down at least every 72 hours to ensure that any remaining blood does not dry into the meat. When meat is transported before being koshered, washing stops are made on the road. All meat must be koshered before it is ground or chopped up into a hamburger, and it is deemed highly desirable that meats be koshered before being frozen. If meat is frozen before being koshered, soaking and salting should take place immediately upon defrosting. In such cases, because the meat is not yet considered kosher, it may not be defrosted in a microwave oven. Instead, it should be defrosted in a refrigerator on pans or plates reserved for that purpose. Okay, so that's the process. On page 316, most producers kosher the meat at the slaughtering plant. That was your question, Larry. Thereby eliminating the subsequent concerns relating to the transporting and freezing of the meat. As a result, one would be hard-pressed to find meat not fully koshered and ready for use in most kosher meat markets today. That's like the new reality today, that everything is koshered already and salted. However, there are some butcher shops that do sell kosher slaughtered meat that has not been soaked or salted. Therefore, unless it is clearly labeled, it is important to ask specifically if meat, one is about to purchase in a kosher facility has been koshered. To kosher meat, one needs the following items: a dedicated tub or other vessel, large enough to place the meat fully inside it, a dedicated surface on which to salt the meat, usually a board with a grooved surface which allows the blood to flow away from the meat, and a sufficient quantity of so-called kosher salt. So you have I remember I saw my mother used to do that when I was a kid, that there would be like a big tub, a big white cutting board that you would put like the meat on, you would salt it and it would all go down. Yeah, she did that. Like I remember as a kid.
It's surprising that in Israel you'd have to do that. You think it'd be
Yeah, but I know it is surprising, but they now you can't get that anymore. You can only get kosher meat. Okay, so this is also like we need to learn a little bit Hebrew here. Kosher meat, okay, and koshered meat. Okay, so kosher meat might not be koshered yet, meaning it hasn't been salted yet. So to kosher something means to salt it. Okay. Um, and the next paragraph on page 316. The meat is soaked in cold water for 30 minutes, then rinsed fully with cold water. The salt is then spread liberally over the entire surface of the meat. For poultry, the salt must fully cover both the inside cavity and the outside of the bird. The salt is left on the meat for an hour, and then the meat is thoroughly rinsed in cold water 3 times to remove all the salt. Coarse salt is specifically used because it is easy to remove by rinsing the meat. If done properly, the meat should not end up with a salty taste, and the procedure should not impart individuals on low sodium diets. Okay? So, yeah?
I know that there are symbols on packages that tell you that something is kosher. I know that there's symbols on packages that say that something is kosher for Passover.
Right.
But is there a third symbol that says that a kosher meat has been kosher?
No.
So how do you tell? How do you know?
Because they would say not kosher. Okay? Like the meat my mother would buy would say kosher, but not kosher. Also the same thing. But they don't sell it anymore. You cannot find meat like that. Okay? You have to go like to a private butcher. Like and really ask him to do that for you. And then they would say, like, you probably have to buy the whole animal, yeah, which would be like very expensive.
Big freezer.
Yeah, big freezer. Yeah, exactly. Okay, the next paragraph is about liver. Liver presents a special issue for kashrut observers because the soaking and salting procedure is not deemed sufficient to remove the blood. Okay, so it's not enough that we do the salting process with the liver because it's like the entire organ of liver is blood. One may, however, kosher liver by broiling it over a direct flame or on the broiler in an electric or gas oven. However, the grids or broiling pans must have holes large enough to allow the blood to drip out freely. Those who do not wish to rely on the rinsing procedure to remove all the salt may kosher other whole pieces of meat by broiling them as well. It is customary to wash the meat in cold water and to salt it with kosher salt before broiling, but it is not required. After the meat has been boiled, it should be rinsed and remove any blood goblets still clinging to the surface. The utensil used for cooking such meat should be used only for that purpose, however. Okay, so here's another fascinating way. You would wash it with water, but you don't have to salt it. You could broil it, like on a flame. You would have like a barbecue and you would, like a direct flame, you would broil it. So that is another interesting way of doing the meat kosher. So you don't always have to, it's like an alternative when you're barbecuing. Okay, so that's interesting. Okay, is that clear? The bottom of page 316. Buying kosher meat is easier today than ever before. Even in communities where fresh kosher meat is not available, frozen kosher meat can generally be procured without difficulty. And in places where not even frozen meat is available, the possibility of ordering kosher meat by telephone over the internet certainly exists, with the exception of raw liver, Commercially frozen meat is almost invariably kosher before being frozen and therefore needs no further treatment before use. Okay, that's what I was saying before. Our days are different than older days. Nevertheless, it is always best to check each package of meat to be sure that the meat has been appropriately soaked and salted. When buying frozen meat, it is especially important to look for evidence that the meat was koshered before being frozen and packaged. Okay, maybe there is something in the packages, but I haven't seen it. Clearly, one must exercise great care when choosing a kosher butcher. In addition to the natural integrity of an honest business person, a kosher butcher bears great responsibility toward the public and, as such, must display the finest moral qualities. When looking for a butcher, one should be able to see evidence of kashrut certification clearly displayed, usually in the form of a letter. Documents solely in Hebrew are rarely displayed in butcher shops outside of Israel. Consumers not fluent in Hebrew should be wary of signs they cannot read and not just assume that it must be source certificate documents. One should certainly expect that a kosher butcher will be closed on Shabbat and major Jewish holidays. All commercially prepared pre-packed meat should have proof of being kosher and of having been duly soaked and salted inside the plastic in which the meat is wrapped. So there are all these guidelines on how to, because there could be a lot of fraud here. Okay, I could package meat and call it kosher, put a kosher stamp. Who's going to know that it's really kosher? So there's a lot of trust here and things that you need to know. So it really has to be sealed. Like a lot of time you buy kosher meat, it's like extra sealed, like twice and three times, like on an airplane. You get like your food, it's all wrapped and there's a seal, and it says if the seal's broken, it might have been compromised, the integrity of the kashrut. So you really have to check these things. And next to in my neighborhood, there was a butcher, and he was selling fresh meat. And then they discovered that he was selling non-kosher meat. It was cheaper for him to do that.
So it wasn't laser.
Why?
It wasn't laser.
Laser, no.
Well, there's such a cost.
Yeah, but this is, but people were paying for kosher meat, and so if the whole neighborhood was very upset, etc. They closed the place down. There are laws in Israel against fraud in kosher, and I think that even in the United States there are laws that you can't call something kosher. Yeah, I can't just take a piece of meat and put a kosher label on it and say it's kosher. There has to be a procedure, a proper way of doing that. And the OU is very big on protecting like their name and all the other kosher places. So interesting line that he said here, one should certainly expect that a kosher butcher will be closed on Shabbat and major holidays. Okay, so you would expect the butcher to be doing that. However, that is not the same. It's not relevant if they're open or not. Because you cannot buy the meat there on Shabbat and Jewish holidays, okay? But if they're open and they're selling maybe, to other customers, it could compromise their level of seriousness, but it doesn't have to be. So there is a debate among the rabbis. And in North Africa, I even heard of a rabbi that he told, the kosher butchers, you have to close on Saturday, and they had like the whole meat industry there. They didn't listen to him, and at a certain point he said, you know what, there's nothing we could do about it because they want to make a living, and I can't stop them from doing that. So he accepted their meat as kosher because the meat was kosher. They were selling it on Shabbat. So no one from the religious community would buy from them on Shabbat, but during the week they would buy from them.
Yeah, you say several times already, you talk about, rabbis are talking about this, that. Who are you talking about when you say the rabbis?
Well, it depends which period of time I'm talking about. Okay, usually when I say the rabbis, I mean like in the times of the Talmud and the Mishnah, which is around the time of the Second Temple. No, Maimonides is much later, so he's like a different period of time of the rabbis.
So if you say the rabbis today, meaning today, who are you talking?
Oh, no, so there's no one set of rabbis. So if I say the rabbis today and they all agree on something, first of all, it's a miracle, like all the rabbis agree on something. Yeah. So that would be most rabbis would agree on that. Okay. So, but if I say that Orthodox rabbi go by this and conservative rabbis go by this, so that then I make the distinction. But if I say the rabbi, so it means all of them agree on this. All the rabbis agree pork is not kosher.
When you say rabbinical law now, if there's a discussion on rabbinical law and a modification of rabbinical law, is there an organization of rabbis that allow that modification to be made, or can any group of rabbis get together and modify existing rabbinical law?
That's a very big important question. And it talks, and we probably will have a session about it because it talks about authority, like rabbinic authority. And a rabbi is wonderful, but if no one follows him and no one listens to him, it's like it has no meaning. A rabbi is a teacher, and he also instructs, like the Jewish law, what to do and what not to do.
Is there a hierarchy
So,
under the social?
So there's no, like, the concept of like a chief rabbi, for example, never existed. Okay, it's a concept that was sort of like invented in modern era. The authorities in I think it was in Hungary and in Germany in the 19th century. So when Jews were emancipated and they started saying, going to the local authorities and saying, we want to be recognized as a Jewish community, okay, that could make our own laws. And then they went out and on the door of the mayor knocked another Jewish group and said, we want our own autonomy. You want to make the laws for our Jewish group. And they left the door in another group. And the guy is like, what's going on with these Jews? There's like, everyone wants, this says this is this. I need order. So they made a chief rabbi for that city in Hungary and in Germany. So in England, there's a chief rabbi appointed, I think, by the Queen even, or not by the Queen, but they get knighted by the Queen. And now it's no more Queen. No. So some countries didn't accept that, and every center sort of like made their own rabbi. Like it would usually be if you were like the smartest rabbi would get to be the chief rabbi. Today that's not the case. The smarter rabbis, they stay in the yeshivas, they teach, and the more that are more political oriented, they're the ones that get the positions of like the chief rabbi, especially in Israel. That the ones that could speak nicely and could show up, and know how to talk with the Gentiles or with with the other Jews that are less observant. It's more like a political thing.
Related to the Bill of God.
Oh.
Although I don't have his smarts, he apparently had an IQ of around 200.
Yeah, he was extremely smart. No, in Britain there's only an Ashkenazi rabbi because most are in America there's no concept of a chief rabbi at all, not for the Orthodox, not for the conservative. In Israel, in Israel there are two chief rabbis. There's a Sephardi one and an Ashkenazi one. There's no one for the conservative because the conservative are very small in Israel. They're not really even recognized there as a Jewish stream.
That's a rabbi.
Chabad had the well, he wasn't the chief rabbi. He was like the leader of the Chabad movement. Schneerson, Rabbi, yeah, Rabbi, uh, yeah, the Schneerson family. Now, in the conservative movement, there is a body that's called the Committee on Jewish Law and Standards, CJLS. Yeah, and that is a very interesting body formed of conservative rabbis who are great scholars, okay? And there's some lay people as well that are knowledgeable, and they're on that committee as well. And they make decisions for the conservative movement. And they are asked questions like, is this thing kosher? Could women be called up to the Torah? Are you allowed to drive on Shabbat? There are different questions that over the centuries or over the decades, people have asked the conservative law committee. Okay, so they sit down and they deliberate, and they write the responsa, the answer, in a very educated and even academic way. They look at the law from the Bible, they look at how it developed, they look at different precedents, and they write their responsa, their response to the person who asked, and then that becomes, if it's adapted by more than 6 rabbis, they vote on it. There are 24 members in the committee, and they vote on it. If 6 rabbis adopt it, okay, then it becomes a possible a rule in the conservative movement. If it's less than 6 rabbis, it is not permissible. And then they might have 2 responses. One would be in favor and one would be against, okay? And they would vote on both of them. The one that got the majority would be the favorable one, as long as it got 6. The other one would not be rejected. If 6 votes were done, even on the minor opinion, okay, then it would also be acceptable. And each rabbi in their community could choose how to follow on which responsa. Okay, I was talking about the second holiday that we were celebrating now, and there's a responsa of the conservative movement that you may eliminate the second day of Yom Tov, and every rabbi needs to decide in their community what to do. He's like the Mara de Atra. Mara de Atra is a concept in Aramaic, which is called Mara is like the ruler of the Atra is like the place. Okay, Mara de Atra. Okay, so Mara is like the guy who makes the rules. So every rabbi is considered the Mara de Atra of their synagogue, or if it's like the chief rabbi of a city, so they're the Mara de Atra of the city, and all the other synagogues need to follow his rule. Or if it's like an individual synagogue, so the rabbi decides for the congregation. So it's actually interesting because in the contract of rabbis, it actually says that they will be the Mara de Atra of the synagogue. So no one else can make that decisions. You could assume that should be the case, but there's so many instances where other people want to make the decisions. So rabbis actually have that in their contract. So it's clear that who makes decisions. Because if you put a lot of Jews in the same room, everyone wants to make the decision. So someone has to make the decision on religious issues, not on not on other issues. Okay, so it's limited. Yeah. So I could decide if we open up on page 100 or 101, but that's my authority in the synagogue.
Saying is that if you have 3 Jews in a room, you have 5 decisions.
Yes, absolutely.
I thought it was 2 Jews and 3
Oh.
Yeah, 3
You get the
synagogue.
idea.
Right.
Do the response frequently, is it kind of similar to what went on in the Talmud where you got the Gemma and the
Yeah, it's actually very interesting. And the oh, what happened?
today,
I didn't silence this. Sorry. Okay, but here is the website of the CJLS Chuvot, which is very interesting. Okay, you should look it up. Okay, and Committee on Jewish Law and Standards. Okay, and here they have uh, prayers, synagogue, Shabbat, holidays, kashrut, conversion. Okay, so if we go here, to kashrut, for example, and again, anyone could go into this website. So here, kosher slaughter, living animal products, worms and insects, meat and milk, mixtures. Okay, and then there's all these questions that Rabbi are asked. Is a K kosher? Shackling and hoisting, what we just talked about, veal calves, um, um, the kashrut of mono and diglycerides, the definition of the varchadas, something new, uh, the kashrut of microbial enzymes. I was just asked about that, okay? Because enzymes are made of animals, okay? And microbial is vegetarian, okay? So you would always, and I should do really a lesson once about how these, so here you see this here. This is the part you want to, let me just enlarge this a little bit so you're able to see it. Because this is really interesting. How do you, yeah, maybe I just go like this. Okay, so you see the Kashrut of Microbial Enzymes, written by Rabbi Castle Abelson, a great scholar, and the paper was approved by the CJLF on December 14th, 1944, by a vote of 16 in favor and 3 abstaining. So not everyone agreed, and these are the rabbis that vote in favor. Abstaining was these rabbis, okay, that I think they abstained because they're more traditional. They didn't want to endorse these enzymes. And then the question was, are cheese made with microbial milk clothing enzymes, sometimes referred to as rennet, kosher? Okay? And then he gives a whole response. He goes in all the different parts, okay? Enzymes in cheese making, microbial rennet, microbial enzymes. In conclusion, pure microbial milk conjugating enzymes that are so-called microbial rennets are kosher, and cheese manufactured with these products may be eaten. Those concerned about use during Passover may want to restrict themselves to cheeses that have Passover certification because they might have things that are not, that are not kosher for Passover, and then they cannot be used, even if it's not from animal fat.
Rabbi, is there, I've gone to that site a couple of times, but it doesn't seem to be an index for every decision. They have categories.
Yeah, it's not that organized. It's not that organized. I hope they work on a better site, but there's a lot of information there. You just need to know how to search. And if you ever ask me, I could help you find the response. There are volumes and volumes. It's printed also. It's like huge volumes. So it's like very interesting to see the process, the thinking that's done. And this is, why I like the conservative movement so well. And the CJLS, I was offered to be a member there. No, I was offered to submit my candidacy to be a member there, but I didn't have time to. It's like you can't just be a member. You have to read all the responses. You have to write them as well. Like you have to commit to a lot of work, and you have to go to New York like a few times a year. So maybe a few years from now when I have more time.
Rabbi, do other religions have this such
no.